Okay, so in our previous class, we were doing API implementation, and we also learned how to create our custom response, right?
Yes,
Uh, then we created this kind of templates. This one was for generic, and then we created two different templates, one for success and one for error. And what was the key idea? Okay, whenever we are going to send any response, it should go in a proper, a structured way. So this is the API which I fixed for that. So if I send one, so yeah, this ID is present in database and that's its record, no error, and all these information is there. In case if I request different ID like this and send the request, so it shows error. But to show this error, what I did, kind of cheating I did here, used if else conditions, right? But ideally, what happens when we are looking for a record, and if that record is not present in data, so you should handle that scenario that ID is not present of student, right? So something we have to do here, something similar we have to do here. We need to create some one more layer actually, one more layer we have to create, and there we will handle these kind of scenarios, kind of exception handling. So what we are learning here, exception handling in Spring Boot. Oi. It's a small topic, okay? Exception handling in Spring Boot, and which is really easy handling. Okay, so that's a topic for today. This class. So let's do this in two steps. Fine. So topic is exception handling, and if you have to handle any exception, so I can categorize into some steps. Let's start with step one. So first step is, as I said, if you are requesting any endpoint on that, like in our case, it's ID. And if I'm requesting something which is not present in our database, if I show you my database, it just has one record, current record. And if I go back and request it, yes, I'm getting the response, all current information. And if I request something else, so this is what I'm getting. So what I want, if I handle this kind of scenario where the ID of student is not present, so what I can do, I mean, see, it's not the only way. We have multiple ways. What I think that this is much ideal scenarios. So what we will do, we will create custom exceptions. So let's start with that. So step one says, let's create custom exception class. Okay, so that's our first step. And here what you have to do, how to create a custom class, right? So let's do that in IntelliJ. And if you notice here, we have controller, DAO, DTO, mapper, model, and service packages. What about exception? What do you think? Where should I put that exception class? Technically, there's no place, logically even, right? So what I'll do, I'll create one more package. So see, as per our requirement, we keep adding packages, layers, classes, and all the stuff. I'll call this exception. Okay, small e exception done. And then I'll create one Java class. And the whole thing is we are focusing on student ID. That ID is not present in database. So what I can say, I have to create one custom exception class. I'll say student ID not found exception. Right? So it's totally up to you how you want to call it. I'm calling it student ID not found exception. And that's Java class. Done. There it is. Now, if I say I have to create custom exception, so what I have to do? You have to extend one Java class, and that's a part of core Java. So definitely, I'm not going to into that much detail. You just need to extend this class, and I'll create two constructors for that and one field. And as per requirement, you can definitely manipulate this whole stuff. It's not the only way. Call it exception message. Done. It's missing. And now, see, the field is private. What I'll do, I'll create two public constructors for this class. Public, um, since it's a constructor, so no return type, and the name would be same as of your class name. That's how create constructors. There it go. And then I'll keep it blank, empty. Okay. And next, I'll create one more constructor, which will take argument of string type that will be used in our case. I'll say string exception message. Okay. And here I will initialize my private member field to call it this dot equals, and I can say exception message. By the way, the variables names are different,
सर
so I can make it similar. Yes.
सर जैसे हम इक्लिप्स में सर सोर्स पे जाकर कंस्ट्रक्टर क्रिएट कर लेते थे वैसे इसमें ऑप्शन नहीं होता है क्या?
कर सकते, लेकिन मैं जस्ट आई वांट टू शो यू मैनुअली
ओके सर.
with that. Okay, so our custom exception class is ready. I'll copy it, and this is our first step. Oh, wow. Okay, so our class is ready. First step is done. Okay, now just a second.
सर इसका कलर चेंज कर दो, मतलब ठीक नहीं दिख रहा है
दिख नहीं दिख
ऐसे
रहा?
जो कोड हमने कॉपी पेस्ट किया है यहाँ पे.
समझ गया. इसको ब्लैक कर देते फिर, ऑल ब्लैक इज बेटर. Okay, so first
ओके
step
सर.
is done. Now let's move to second step. So once we have custom exception, what's next? Next step is again quite simple. You can actually just by heart it, okay? You don't have to do anything. So go for it. So now we are talking about step two. Hmm. Okay, so step two says create a class, or you can say global handler. Global handler. Global what handler? Exception handler. Java class. Okay. How are we going to do that? By using one annotation. So I'll use that and then I'll come back to complete this image. So technically we are going to create a class which will globally handle all the exceptions. Okay. And how it will globally handle all the exception? Because of the annotation I'm going to use. So let's go back. We already have a package exception. So right click on that, going for Java class, and I'll say, what should I call it? So what's our application name? It's for student, right? So I'll just call it student um, exception handler. So that means this exception is for all student related exceptions. Fine. And enter. Now, how I can make it global handler? Well, by using one annotation at controller advice. That's why. Once you mark your class
सर
with
आई
this annotation.
सर आई
Hmm.
थिंक सर रेस्ट कंट्रोलर ऐसे कुछ होता है एक और भी ना शायद, जैसे हम रेस्ट एपीआई के लिए यूज करते हैं तो जैसे एक
Hmm.
कंट्रोलर होता है एक रेस्ट कंट्रोलर होता है वैसे इसके लिए भी एक दो होते हैं शायद,
ये रहेगा,
कंट्रोलर
हाँ.
एजवाई
हम्म.
और एक और होते हैं.
राइट, दो नोटेशन होते हैं, तो ये उस पर काम करता है. ठीक है, तो स्टेप टू वाज क्रिएट अ क्लास विच विल ग्लोबली हैंडल योर एक्सेप्शन. राइट, एन एक्सेप्शन की स्पेलिंग गलत हो गई. लेट्स फिक्स इट. रिफैक्टर, रीनेम. Okay, refactor, done. So we have a global class and that's how it should look like. Okay, and step 2 is also done. Font खत्म हो गया इसका फिर से. Consoles. Okay, so this is the notation you have to use at controller advised at top of your class. So your class can handle exceptions globally. And definitely in between you have to pass something or write something. So that's our next step. Code to handle exception. Okay, so step 2 is also done. Great, done. Let's move to next step. Let me save this image. Done. Okay. So what's the step 3? So step 3 says create a method. Okay, that's it. We just have 3 steps. So create a method for particular exception. Okay, so right now, what's our case? We are trying to handle one exception. What's the exception name? Student ID not found exception. Okay, right? So we already have this class which is dedicated for only IDs for particular exceptions like this. List not working. What it is? Okay, so this is the exception like this. So we have to create a method, okay, particular to that exception. So how we do that? Let's create here and then we will see. So again, that method will, needing one exception, and let's stop the service. Okay, so we are inside a global handler, the exception, and here I'm going to create a method for handling this exception. Okay, fine. Method. Okay, so how we going to do that? Fairly easy. Create a method, make its return type like how it looks like, and then return it. So let's make it public, and for now let's return that class. What is our global API response? Okay, I'm going to use it. Public API response. Let's say handle student ID not exception method. Okay, that's our method name, and in argument it will take that type, what exception it's going to handle or throw. Okay, so or on second thought, let's do it for a while. Okay, let's save it. Okay, so we are going to do this one API response, and this I'm going back and copying this else stuff. Okay, I'm copying this else stuff here, copy it and paste it, and definitely I will be needing this object API response, copy it, going back. So you can see what I just did. I have created one method, and that method will be working for this particular exception. But how does this whole system knows, okay, that this method is for only student ID exception? So you have to use at exception handler, okay, and mention your class name, that I am writing this method for this particular exception, and that's how Springboot knows, okay, this method is for student ID not found exception. Likewise, you can create multiple methods for your exceptions. Return, and again, this is just one method, not the only method. Okay, response return, semicolon, and path, let's keep it as it is. So we have error, and this is here. Now we need ID. We don't have ID, so let's leave it for a while. Little we'll fix it. Just want to see how it's working. Okay, and if I return that, then how it will work. Okay, we can do one thing, because I need to capture that message as well, like what it is returning. So we can do one thing. Let's pass that argument here, this class uh, thing, because I need to capture. Because right now what I'm saying, student ID with this something wrong or invalid. But what I want something from the here. Okay. So what I just did, I just captured. I'm trying to capture that exception, which will be thrown from here. Okay. So copy it, and I'll remove this whole hard-coded thing from the dynamic stuff. Okay. Let's make it simple and simple reference exception dot get me the message. Okay, that's one message which we. So now you can see there's no hard-coded thing like what just happened. It just says exception dot get message and it's done. Okay, so this section is done, and that's how we create or done with third steps. Okay, so we have a method which will handle a particular exception, which is student not found. So we are done with the third step as well. Okay, let's fix this as well. Okay, and color as well. So this is the method which we are trying to use to handle that exception. So the key point is you should mark your method with this thing. Okay, mark the exception
handler.
with add exception handler annotation. Right. That's it. These are three steps you have to do, and you're done with your whole setup stuff, which you can say, yes, I'm done with the steps. Let's save this as a step three. Okay, so we're done with all three stages, steps. So what we did initially, we created a particular exception. Like what was the requirement? So requirement was maybe I'm not able to, you know, figure out where my exception is or what's the exception is. So I have to create a custom exception. This is done. Then I created a global handler like this. So which can entertain all the exception occurring in your application, which is also done. In third step, we created a method particular for that particular related exception. So in our case, it was student not found. So we did this. So if you check the database, we have three columns: ID, email, name. So what I'm using ID. Maybe in future I will use one email thing, right? I'm going to search
Yes sir.
people with email. I think I have gave you some homework. दिया था ना? करा कि नहीं करा?
यस सर दिया था बट अभी
कस्टम
वो
क्वेरी.
नहीं हुआ।
तो
हाँ
कस्टम
यस
क्वेरी
सर
ट्रेनिंग.
कस्टम क्वेरी मैंने देखा था अभी सबको हुआ नहीं है बाकी तो
अच्छा.
इसी में सर टाइम लग गया करने में खुद से।
हम्म. चलो ठीक है. ओके, सो या जस्ट गिव यू आइडिया कि अगर मैं ईमेल पे सर्च करूँ तो कैसे फिर आइडिया होगा, कैसे पता लगेगा. सो आई हैव टू क्रिएट वन मोर मेथड व्हिच सेज स्टूडेंट ईमेल नॉट फाउंड, है ना, फॉर एग्जांपल. दैट कैन बी आल्सो इम्प्लीमेंटेड. ठीक है, सो वी आर डन विद दैट. एंड आइडिया वाज सेम कि मुझे अपने जो एक्सेप्शन है उसका क्या कहते हैं कि रेस्पॉन्स ये करना है. तो फॉर नाउ लेट्स डू वन थिंग, दैट वी कमेंट दिस स्टफ just to check whether I'm getting proper response or not. Let's print one line in our console. Okay, file saved. Let's run the code, and here I'll say return uh, empty. I'll say let's return API. Okay, blank because it's giving me error. Okay, let's test it. So code is executed. Server is almost up. Let's test it. Here it is. And if I send right now, see, you can see I'm using handed ID, right? मैं handed ID check कर रहा हूँ. Send the request, and this is its response. Because we haven't linked it yet, right? अभी भी जो response आ रहा है कहाँ से आ रहा है वो कंट्रोलर से. इट्स कमिंग
यस सर
फ्रॉम द कंट्रोलर,
कंट्रोलर से।
है ना, क्योंकि अभी तक एल्स ब्लॉक है इसके अंदर. तो हम एल्स ब्लॉक को यहाँ से भी हटा देते हैं. तो अभी के लिए मैं कमेंट करता हूँ. आई विल गिव यू दिस कोड सो यू कैन कनेक्ट इट. सो आई एम जस्ट कमेंटिंग दिस सेक्शन. Fine, this is done. Now let's go back and restart this application. Restart, reload it. Okay, it's up. Let's test it. Request sent, and this time you can see everything is coming null, 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 right? And if I check the console, still I don't get this message. मैंने कह तो दिया कि हैंडलर है, ये ग्लोबल हैंडलर है, बट व्हाट वी आर एक्सपेक्टिंग कुछ ऐसा मिल के आए, राइट? there's not this one, this one. I was expecting this message, why अभी तक कंसोल पाया नहीं है? द रीजन
हम्म,
इज क्योंकि मैंने अभी तक इस एक्सेप्शन को एक्सप्लिसिटली थ्रो ही नहीं किया। एक्सेप्शन कब अकर होते हैं? जब ये कस्टम एक्सेप्शन कब अकर होते हैं? इसलिए मैंने
सर
कहा था
जब
कोड जावा पढ़ो। हाँ बताओ।
सर जब हम उन्हें
हम्म।
सर भूल क्या नहीं याद आ रहा है।
फिर वही ना, इसलिए कहा था लास्ट क्लास में कि कोड जावा पढ़ के आओ, एक्सेप्शन स्पेसिफिकली। तो whenever you're going to create your custom exceptions, you need
सर
to throw them explicitly,
थ्रोज
है ना?
कीवर्ड, यस सर।
थ्रो कीवर्ड, राइट।
यस सर,
तो
थ्रोज
जैसे
कीवर्ड।
हम क्या करेंगे, अब हमें वो जगह देखनी पड़ेगी ना, वो लोकेशन, द लॉजिकल प्लेस। सो दैट शुड बी हियर। दिस इज इट, कि एक स्टूडेंट मेथड है एंड नॉट रिक्वायर्ड एट ऑल। लेट्स मूव इट। ओके, सो लॉजिक क्या लिखा हुआ है? आईडी आया, आईडी इज गोइंग इन फॉर डेटाबेस, इफ इट्स देयर सो इट विल डू ऑल द स्टफ, अदरवाइज इट रिटर्न्स नल, राइट। तो यहाँ पे अगर वो एम्प्टी है तब वो रिटर्न नल कर रहा है, तो मैं क्या करूंगा, नल की जगह यहाँ पे मैं पूरा एक्सेप्शन थ्रो कर दूंगा, ठीक है। नॉट रिटर्न, ओके। रिटर्न को मैं करता हूँ कमेंट, और यहाँ पे कर दूंगा मैं थ्रो।
थ्रो।
थ्रोज नहीं, थ्रो, थ्रो
यस सर।
न्यू, एंड व्हाट्स माय एक्सेप्शन नेम, स्टूडेंट आईडी नॉट फाउंड, राइट। और इसको ऐसे कर देते हैं, दैट्स इट। अब रिस्टार्ट करते हैं। तो मैंने एक प्लेस ढूंढी जहां पे लॉजिक ऑलरेडी लिखा हुआ था कि अगर एम्प्टी है तो मैं रिटर्न नल कर रहा था। नाउ दिस टाइम आई वोंट रिटर्न नल, आई थ्रो दैट एक्सेप्शन, दैट कस्टम एक्सेप्शन। सब स्टार्ट हो चुकी है। लेट्स रिक्वेस्ट दिस अगेन। सो यहाँ तो आपको नल ही दिखने वाला है, कोई नल नहीं दिखा, नॉट फाउंड आ गया, दैट्स ग्रेट। अब अगर इस पे जाएंगे आप, आइडिया बस कि यहाँ मुझे मैसेज चाहिए, आया मैसेज?
यस सर।
जो हमने एक हैंडलर बनाया था इस एक्सेप्शन के, वहां जा चुका है ये, है ना? ये यहाँ से आया है। That means this handler stuff is working, right? So now what I can do, I'll just uncomment everything saved, and let's run the code again. Okay, so restart this application. Okay, now let's send the request. Request send. Okay, everything's fine. At least not here. But if I go back, this is happening, and we are still getting the same message, right? Student ID not found, exception occurred. So something is missing, right? Some piece of code is missing, which is not happening here. So it throws, it is throwing, not a, I mean, it is returning something, API response, but not the way we want. We need something else here. Okay, so I know you don't know how things are working here, so we need to add some more layer, or you can say more features in our custom response. Okay, so let's do this. What I was thinking, let's do this tomorrow. Okay, for now, just keep this much code, that we are creating our custom exceptions, and this is how we handle it. Okay, tomorrow what we will do, we will create one more, you can say, feature in our response. Right now what we're returning, a plain Java class, right? API response. But in actual projects we don't do this kind of stuff. Okay, I just gave you one insight that we can also customize the response, but this is like हाफ बेक डेटा। फाइन, अभी इसमें और हमको फीचर्स ऐड करने पड़ेंगे जो एक्चुअल प्रोजेक्ट्स में हम लोग यूज करते हैं। वो होता है एक रेस्पॉन्स एंटिटी। सो आई एम गिविंग यू वन टास्क, ट्राई टू डू दैट बाय योरसेल्फ। चेक आउट व्हाट इज
इट इज।
रेस्पॉन्स एंटिटी। ओके,
ओके सर।
रेस्पॉन्स एंटिटी and how it works. So you can even search on the web. Okay, response entity class, or just check um, usage of response entity in Spring Boot. Okay, likewise you can search. That's your first move. Okay, and next you can try um, create two more custom exceptions. Okay, in whatever project you have created for your own. Okay, in your project, do this thing and link them in global handler. Fine. So just two tasks for you for now. So first you have to check what is response entity in Spring Boot and then create two more custom exceptions. So as per your class fields, your requirements, you can create them. In case if I have to create, for example, if I have to create two more custom exceptions, so I'll go for the model or entity class field. In our case, what is the entity class here? Student. So open this model class. There's a class. So we already have a exception for ID. Right now we just have two
Yes,
field
sir.
and no other class. So I can use student name not found exception and
And email
student
not found.
email exception, right? Why I'm specifying student maybe in future, because not maybe I will do that. I will create one more model class, okay, and I'll link them. Remember that mapping in Hibernate one to many.
Yes, sir.
We are going to implement that functionality as well here. So that time I'll say teacher ID not found, teacher name not found, teacher email not found. Okay, that way. So that's why I'm specifying that student ID is missing or you need something. So whatever we just did today, it's like again 50%. So we did 50% of custom exception, 50% of exception handling. Tomorrow we will complete all the section of custom exceptions and customer response. Fine. So tomorrow we will conclude everything, and that will be a complete package for your basic stuff for this application. Fine.
Okay, sir.
So maybe on Monday onwards we will see how we will manage other stuffs. So कोई क्वेश्चन या कुछ क्वेरी बताओ, अदरवाइज आज के लिए इतना करते हैं अभी.
ओके सर। सर अभी तो कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है।
ठीक है, तो जो ये होमवर्क है ट्राई कराओ.
सर
Try to complete
मतलब
it.
नेम और ईमेल के लिए हमें कस्टम एक्सेप्शन क्रिएट करना है, जैसे
हाँ,
हम
जो
आईडी
भी,
क्लियर कर रहे थे।
जैसे मैंने कहा था कि आपके पास ऑलरेडी प्रोजेक्ट है, तो उसमें अपना जो भी एंटिटी क्लास चेक करो. एक आधी फील्ड तक सब बढ़ाए होंगे ना उसमें.
यस
उसी
यस
बेस
सर।
पर अपने दूसरे कस्टम एक्सेप्शन बनाओ. कॉल तो भी कर नहीं पाओगे बस, लेकिन सेसॉर्ट में चेक कर सकते हो कंसोल पे कि हाँ वो मेथड कॉल हो गया, इतना कर लो.
ओके सर।
ओके. तो कल क्या करेंगे हम, जो ये रेस्पॉन्स एंटिटी है, रेस्पॉन्स एंटिटी प्लस कस्टम एक्सेप्शन, इन सबको मिक्स करके एक प्रॉपर रेस्पॉन्स बनाएंगे और फिर अपने एक्सेप्शन को प्रॉपरली रिस्पॉन्स में ऐड करके थ्रो भी करेंगे. ठीक है, बट टुमारो अभी क्या ना हलवा बन जाएगा, अभी मिक्स हो जाएगा.
ओके सर।
ठीक है, तो जब तक वहां पहुंचते हैं, अपना सिस्टम रेडी रखो और ये चीजें पढ़ के आओ, ताकि कल ही आसानी हो समझने में रिस्पॉन्स एंटिटी क्या चीज है. ठीक.
ओके सर।
ओके जन, बाय, गुड नाइट.
गुड नाइट सर।